Hi, my darlings. I'm Sophie Darling, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're reacting to episode 18 of series 2 of Apothecary Diaries, and I can't begin to tell you how excited I have been all week to finally sit down and film Apothecary Diaries because I can only film twice a week. So I film on Monday and I film on Friday. So I don't film the episodes back to back. So sometimes if I miss things, it's because there's a bit of a gap in between. So with Apothecary Diaries, Vinland, Full Metal Alchemist, I watch like one episode each on Monday and then one episode each on the Friday. So I do forget things. I do apologize. Whereas if I watch them back to back, I'm more likely to remember something, but it's a lot and I also have to edit, so I don't always have the time. But I have been on the edge of my seat because I think we're going to see JINSHI starting to piece everything together. I think we're going to see him potentially investigate Lolan, who's not actually Lolan, because we know that Lolan is with Mau Mau up in the hot spring village, preparing for a festival. And we clearly then have someone pretending to be Lolan who has been left in this situation. My question though is, of course, don't answer this because we will likely find this out, is if whoever's masquerading as Lolan right now, did they know that she was just gonna like straight up disappear and leave her in this position for like multiple consecutive days? Or could you imagine her just being like, hey, I just need you to like cover for me for like a few hours? And you're like, yeah, sure, I've done it before. It's okay. And then the next thing you know, she just doesn't show up again. And you're just like, oh shit. Like, I'm having to play this role for far longer than I intended. And can you imagine how daunting it would be knowing that the whereabouts of Mau Mau is being investigated, coupled with the fact that you may end up getting interviewed and interrogated by JINSHI. And when it comes to Mau Mau, JINSHI doesn't hold any punches. And we've seen how scary JINSHI can be. When we had that episode with Li Shu and her former head lady in waiting and the pin in her hair, when she was confronted by JINSHI about that pin, he was terrifying. So imagine that times like 10 because it's Mau Mau that's missing. Oh, it's going to be so exciting. I cannot wait to see how this all transcends. I feel as if this festival is going to be sort of where everything takes place. I think the festival hasn't happened yet. They're building up to it, which means I think when the showdown inevitably happens in terms of JINSHI finding Mau Mau, it's going to be during this festival because I don't think Mau Mau is going to get back to the rear palace. So I think JINSHI is going to find out where she is. JINSHI is going to head there, and then it's all going to take place during this festival, and the festival is kind of going to masquerade this showdown and confrontation between JINSHI and possibly Shisho. He has to know this is all taking place, and I imagine once he knows that things are moving, he might venture there himself, because I still think this is baiting the Crown Prince to rescue Mau Mau. I say it like rescue, but as in like their intention isn't for him to rescue her. Their intention is for him to be baited into a trap so they can get rid of him. I'm still like 50-50 that it's a trap for JINSHI, but it's also to make sure that Mau Mau doesn't intervene any further and ruin their plans. But I think them having seen the Crown Prince and then Mau Mau attending him and then they disappeared highlighted Mau Mau as being close enough to the Crown Prince that there could be an insinuation of something more intimate between them, because people have made like jokes about it and we know how rumor spreads. So Shishu could have taken that on board as there is actually something intimate happening, that she is of value, that she is favorited, and therefore she is the bait to lure the Crown Prince here to this festival and then using the guise of the festival to assassinate JINSHI. But I don't think JINSHI is going to be assassinated. I'm not sure how it's all going to play out, but I think what we're going to finish series 2 with is a potential war. Because this is a coup. But this is a coup being backed by other people as well, because Aileen and Isla are also nobles. They've supplied the weapons to Shishu, meaning there is financial backing there. There is somebody that is also intent on bringing down this dynasty and replacing it with Shishu. So I think there's other factors in the background that have kind of been glimpsed but not fully revealed to us yet. And I think what we're going to see is that there are multiple people in affluent positions that are also moving against the emperor. So there is going to be a rebellion, which is going to spark a civil war. But it could also be a war with Island and Isla's country, potentially, because they have supplied the weapons. They're backing Shishu, but why are they backing Shishu is the question. So it could be a war between Island and Isla's country with the emperor, or it could be a war with Shishu, it could be a civil conflict, but we won't fully know until more information is given to us. But they're holding their cards quite close to their chest. I'm sure towards the end of the series we'll get the full kind of context, but I am excited to see Lacan be his strategic madman self. I'm really excited for that. But I think maybe this episode and the next couple of episodes are going to be focused on Lolan and Surrey and emphasizing why they're doing what they're doing. I think we're going to have them humanized to us to such an extent that we don't see them as villains, but we see them more as unfortunate victims of their parents. As I mentioned in the previous outro, I think they're really going to play on this idea of what happens when children are brought up in certain toxic environments. This is the aftermath of that. And can you really blame them when they don't know any better, when they have had no other choice but to be what their parents have shaped them into being? And the pressures and expectations of a noble family on top of that as well. So I think we're going to see them really humanized. And I'm looking forward to know more about their relationship growing up and more about Surey's background, because I still think she must be the daughter of the banished princess, but that hasn't been confirmed to us yet. We still don't know much about what happened to the banished princess other than she left and was raised by the doctor that was her father but wasn't her father, because the emperor denied that she was his. She was actually the emperor's baby, but was raised by the doctor. So I really want to see how that plays out. I really want to know more about that, but I'm not going to ramble. We're going to get into it because a lot of what I said is just going to be a repeat of what I said in the previous outro until we watch this episode. So without further ado, we're going to jump into episode 18. Oh, and Gyokyu went into labor. Yeah. She's stressed, as you would be. They do say that the second baby comes fast. Oh, the baby's flipped. Have faith in her. His eyes. He's so emotional. At least the baby is the right way now. He's like, come to me. I can do this. Makes him feel normal because everyone else is so like rational. And he's having to hide how he really feels. So seeing someone else panicking kind of validates him.
宦官の名はティエン。元は異民族の奴隷という話でしたが、共に来たはずのものの誰とも面識がなかったそうです。
Because they weren't a slave.
廟に手を合わせているところを見た者がおります。
And at the grave.
北側の墓地。はい。選定のお手つきになり、高級で最後を迎えた者たちの墓。
Her grandmother. I'm calling it.
ティエンはそこで何者かの墓の前で手を合わせていたようです。
It's going to be her grandmother.
その名を記録されることもなく、この花園で消えていく。
And she's here too, because she would have known them. They would have been her friends.
失礼します。
She knows. Didn't she stop her? She knows.
この匂い。
Oh,
マオマオはどこへ行った？落ち着け。
he
今の俺は
slipped.
ガンガンの人種だ。
His charming
いつも
facade
通り。
dropped for a moment.
そばかすの女官。
Oh my
奇跡の事件に
goodness!
ついて知りたいのだが。
It's crazy how quick he can switch back and forth. He's been doing this for years. It's so effortless for him. And he can't be authoritative and demand here because that's not Jinshi the eunuch. He's stepping out of place. What he was doing then when he grabbed her wrist and demanded to know where Mao Mao was, that is him as the prince, as the crown prince, as the heir. That's his true self slipping out. This sweet, calm facade that he's putting on here, this charming act to get information, is because he needs these women to be charmed by him, to find out what they're hiding. He can't get that if they know he's the crown prince, if he demands it, if he orders it from them, because they'd be too scared of him to ever let it slip. If they're charmed by him, if they're besotted with him, they would tell him something that they would be unlikely to tell anyone else because they would want to please him. But it's just how quick he switched back into this facade that you don't realize until you see it happen how easily he falls into that role, but also how easily he slips out of it too, especially when it comes to Mao Mao. Oh, she knows. Oh, yes, 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 yes. I completely forgot that Anshi saw the overlay of them both when she was talking to Jinshi, because Jinshi looks like the young emperor and she's seeing that, and she likely is going to be absolutely petrified because she hates the man. She's resentful and frustrated, but I imagine she's also scared because of that trauma that she experienced as a child, that she might almost revert back to a childlike self, like close herself off or lash out because she's fearful of what she's seeing, which is almost like a reincarnation of the very man that deflowered and hurt her and her friends and prevented her from being reunited with her family.
何か知っているな。
She's terrified.
出しました。古い記憶を。お優しい声で名前を呼ばれ、甘い異国の菓子をいただきました。
何の話だ？
The previous emperor.
若い頃のあの方の姿を知らないのですね。私が成長してからは通われることもなく、
誰のことだ？
The previous
あなた
emperor.
はよく似ている。
何の話をしている？
どうしてあなたのような方が
おー
ごとき真似をしているのですか？
She knows.
取り押さえろ！
Why is someone of your status pretending to be a eunuch? Because she knows from looking at him that he's related to the previous emperor. Because she knows what he looks like when he's young. Poison. She's gonna kill herself, so she can't tell them anything.
毒か。ジン様、ご指示を。
Damn, she's really willing to go that far to hide it all. Then again, it's either kill yourself or be killed, because everything she's done is treason.
旅館の戯れなど気にしてどうします？戯れ。戯れで毒を飲み干すか。
She was terrified.
ガオシン。
Oh, Jinshi, you're not him though.
毒を煽らせるほど。母にも似ず、兄にも似なかった。
But you look like your mom.
信じた。
You look like our doer.
似たのかしら。帝の好みを考えたら皇后様のお年じゃねえ。だから言われてるんじゃない。
Oh, bless him. You know what? This is really showing the similarities between the two of them because Mao Mao also had to overhear gossip about herself, about how she nearly brought the Vardas house into disrepute, that she was the reason it fell into decline, and it really impacted who she was as a person. So now seeing that Jinshi also suffered the same thing, that he was having to listen to people gossip and spread rumors about his legitimacy, about who he is as a person, and that he doesn't look like his mom, and because his emperor likes little girls, he must be born of someone else, that his mother must have had an affair. But he is Aldua's son. He is not Anshi's son, but he obviously doesn't know that. But it would have thrown some deep philosophical questions that would have made him really sort of question his position and question his worth, and maybe see himself as not of any value to anyone because he's whispered to be illegitimate, that he is scandalized in a sense. I feel so sorry for him, but it's just a nice little comparison between the two of them, that they both have experienced similar instances as children of people talking about them, of gossip being spread about them, of having to overhear adults speculating about their position and how it could impact their sense of worth and confidence in themselves when they grow up. So we see the ramifications of that on these children who are now a lot older, but they haven't quite allowed those words to disappear, to die down. Jinshi is still impacted by it, and Mao Mao's still impacted by it. They're both shaped by the cruelty of gossip and the cruelty of rumor. But he's now thrown into an existential crisis of thinking, oh my god, I look like the emperor. And maybe part of him was hoping the emperor wasn't his father because he didn't want to be connected with someone that has such a foul reputation in harming young girls. He doesn't want to be born from him, but having people recognize him as looking like the previous emperor is now throwing him into the situation of where he's like, I am related to him and I have to accept that. Maybe I am his son, but he's not. He's the emperor's son. He looks like the emperor and he looks like Aldua. And I love that people are saying that he doesn't look like anyone. I'm like, have you not seen the emperor? Have you not seen Aldua? He looks like them both. He looks like his mom, to the point that his mom can masquerade as him, and some people like Shishu can't even tell the difference. So, you know, Jinshi, you may resemble your grandfather in some ways, but you are not your grandfather. You're not burdened by your blood relation to him, but you are your mother's child without a question.
血のつながりがないという噂を信じ、東宮の地位から逃れようとした。帝である兄に頼み込み、宦官の名を得て女の園にいるのは何のためか。
To run from his destiny, to run from what's intended for him.
私は私にできることを
するだけです。
そうだ。自分を笑うのは後だ。
He's got to lock it in.
ほおずきとは季節外れだな。大宝。
去年亡くなった女官の名です。
ああ。よく人を集めて怪談話をしていたな。
Gonna be the concubine that had the daughter. Yep.
身内は大宝の血を引く者はただ一人。
The fact they took her child from her.
イカンとの密通により生まれた娘だ。
She was so young.
その娘が生きていれば。
Sorry, hold up a second. She's not the daughter though. Surei is too young to be the daughter of that concubine. So Surei has to be the granddaughter. He's not just looking at Lolan, it's looking at Shishu as well, which I think is inferring that that daughter likely married Shishu and had Surei, that they had a child together. But he's made a connection to Lolan now. He's made a connection. Oh, we're gonna see him interrogate her. But it's not her.
大宝の仕えていた妃は後に師匠に下賜され娘を産んだ。 その娘がローラン妃だ。
Wait. The concubine that Taiho served was later given to Shishu. Okay, so Taiho was the one that had the daughter that was taken from her. So the banished princess that we don't really know what happened to her other than she left the palace with the doctor. But there was a concubine who Taiho served who was given to Shishu, who Shishu married, and they had Lolan.
高級を追放された遺憾とともに
Exactly.
消息は分かっていない。
Oh my god, are we gonna actually know the backstory now of the banished princess? Okay, no, so this all makes sense now. He makes the connection that Taihao, who had the daughter who was taken away from her, used to serve a concubine who was given to Shishu, and they had Lolan. So he makes the connection that perhaps because of Lolan's mother and father, that she may know what happened to the baby and the doctor because of the connections they had to Taiho. But she never left the palace, obviously, so she died here, and her daughter and the doctor kind of went off the record. But the key takeaway here is that they only mention Lolan as being the daughter of this concubine in Shishu, meaning for Lolan and Surei to be sisters, because she calls her sister, means that she is Shishu's daughter. So Shishu must have had a marriage prior to this concubine, prior to having Lolan. So likely Surei was his daughter from a previous marriage. Or they raised her and adopted her and taken her in, but I don't know why they would do that because of the concubine's connections to Surei's grandmother that they felt like they owed Surei, but I think she is Shishu's daughter, which means Shishu must have married this banished princess. But because Lolan's mother was served by the woman that had the banished princess, then he's presuming that Lolan and her family would know this information, that he could gain something from it and find out what happened to this daughter and the doctor. And I think when he finds out what happened to the daughter and the doctor, he's going to then know that Surei is the granddaughter of Taihao. That I keep saying her name like 100 different ways there. I'm so sorry. I don't quite know how to say it. But he'll know that Surei is the daughter of the banished princess and the granddaughter of Taihao. But I love that he's able to like put together that the only person he can get information from is Lolan because he is knowledgeable on all the intimate relationships and the power dynamics enough that he's able to determine how each person's connected to one another. This is why being a eunuch in the flower garden was a great decision for Jinshi. It comes in handy. Oh, you are acting like Mao Mao, following that hunch. Only it's not Lolan. And I think he's going to realize it's not Lolan. Something's going to twig. I keep pausing. I'm so sorry. But if we think back to episode 3 of series 2, we know that Jin was impersonated and that nobody knew because they just believed that Jin was sick, whereas Jin had actually died and been buried outside. And Jinshi was kind of like, we need to pay closer attention. So I think Jinshi is going to notice like a physical characteristic or maybe a mannerism that's going to make him realize that this isn't actually Lolan, that he's brushed up on all these concubines enough that he can't be fooled again by someone impersonating a concubine, that he'll be able to suss it out. He's made sure that what happened to Jin can't happen again. And I think we're going to see that take place here, that he's going to look at this woman who isn't Lolan and something is going to click in his brain that this is an imposter. It all comes full circle. Trust, watch, it's going to happen. She's also not speaking directly to him, which is very unusual. They all look alike.
まるで狐だ。本日はお伺いしたいことがありまし。
See?
ジン様。
何を。
私は宮に仕える侍女たちの名前と顔を把握しています。
He's so intimidating.
わかりやすい部分で記憶していたんです。例えば唇の形や目の形、あとはそう、ほくろの位置、総理、いや蓮風かな。お前の名は。
Oh, God, love her. I'd be terrified too.
奇抜な格好や化粧をしていたのも
It's all been an act.
すべてこのためか。本物はどこへ
Oh my God.
どこへ
Do they know? I don't know if they will have been trusted to know.
ローラン妃はどこへ行った。
Holy shit,
申し訳
Jinshi.
ありません。蓮風は本当に何も知らないのです。
I think they've innocently been dragged into it. They can't really refuse a concubine, can they? Especially a high-ranking one. I don't think they had any choice. Mamao's drummed this into him that unfortunately ladies in waitings and servants don't often have control over their own lives. Oh, they've rounded up the whole household.
これ以上問い詰めても無駄か。
総出で探していますが、ローラン妃らしき人物は見当たらないと。
She's not
もう
here.
妃と呼ぶ必要はない。高級からの逃走は中
She'll not be a concubine after
上級
this.
妃となればなおのこと。
Because that was never their intention for her to stay as a concubine.
人質として高級という鳥かごに閉じ込めることができる。
But if she's not here, she can't be trapped.
マオマオはどうだったんだろうな。
Oh.
妓女の足抜けのようだといつだったか言っていたが、だがそれなら書き置きなど残さない。一体
I mean,
何
it wasn't willingly. She felt like she was going along to help protect Shisui.
マオマオが
Oh no!
行方不明。
Oh, they've pissed off Lacan now.
今パパが助けるぞ。
Oh, they fucked up. Oh, they have sent this man on a downward spiral.
漏れたようです。
They've unleashed hell.
現在師匠の足取りがつかめません。
What a coincidence.
ローランと共謀していたのでしょうか。
Yes.
大砲と面識があったと調べがついております。謀反に加担したのはそのつながりかと。他の者は謀反について何も知りませんでした。
それでも協力したのは皆がシェンリュと同じ恨みを持っていたからか。
It's hard for them not to have that resentment.
女たちの恨みが向かう先は高級そのものだ。
It seeped out of where the original anger was stemmed from to extending to the system itself. With the Emperor no longer being alive for them to direct it at him, it's the system of the rear palace that they want to dismantle and destroy.
初めてお目にかかります。カン・ラハンと申します。
外邸内でラの名を持つ者はラカンとラハン。
I was gonna say, he kind of looks like Lacan.
ラの一族、軍師殿の養子だな。何か用か。
I was so confused. I was like, he
こちらを
looks
お見
like
せしようと
him.
思いまして。
His adopted son. Oh my god, Mama technically has a brother.
フェイファの出所がわからないのが気持ち悪いようでして。
そこ
Oh,
から
he's very like
なぜか
Lacan, isn't he?
処罰されたカンたちの周りを洗っていたら。
ここ数年、穀物の値が明らかに上がっている。
それからもう一つ、なぜか鉄の値も上がっているの
They're
です。
building an army.
国全体の金属の値も。
Food. Iron for weapons.
抜け目のないところは養父にそっくりだな。
See?
言い
I
たい
said
こと
the
は理
same
解した
thing.
その差額は誰かが横領している。そして金属の値上がり、こちらも何者かが大量に仕入れている。
To build an army.
この二つの行き着く先は同じです
A。coup.
そして、これほどのことができる人物も
シーシュ
限られるでしょう。私なら、もっと詳しく調べることができ
Oh,
ます。
the music. So good.
流れがどこに集約しているのか。
Yes.
教え
Yes,
て
it
もらいたく
would.
ないですか？
Tell me more. God, he's so like Lacan. Down to the mannerisms.
それで要求は何だ？ 利害なしに話を持ってきたわけではないの
His
だろ
little ears.
ジンシ様、少し勉強していただけないでしょうか。
それを
父上が壊した高級の門の修繕費です。
Look, his daughter's gone missing.
その
It's like a
代わ
little
り
wolf.
徹底的に
Mamao's a
調べ
cat and he's like a
金と鉄
dog.
が流れ着いた先で何が起きようとしているのか
Or is it meant to be like a fox? I'm not sure.
使えるものは何でも使ってやる
Oh, this is so exciting. Ooh! I just want to watch the rest of the show. I want to inject it into my veins. So, to me, what they're insinuating and hinting at is that somebody is building an army. They're leveraging the money and the materials to build weapons and to possibly bribe people to join their cause, join their side. When he was talking about how it's a grave treason essentially for Lolan to leave because she is a high-ranking concubine. It's because they never intended her to stay as a concubine, that he was intending to become the emperor and therefore would release his daughter from that position and she would be free to act as a princess in the palace itself. So the fact that she's left and Shishu's also disappeared may not initially be their original plan. I still feel like the reason why she was put as a concubine was A, to gather vital information for Shishu's plan and his coup, but also to get close enough to the emperor that she could potentially be the one to assassinate him. But things haven't panned out the way that they initially thought they would. Kind of evident that Mama has just kind of thrown their plans off base and they have had to think on their feet, and that initially what they intended for Lolan isn't now what they intend for her. She has left to escape before anything could be figured out any further, before she could be investigated into. And Shishu has also disappeared. So his daughter can't be used as leverage. It can't be used to keep him in line. But that's exactly why they took Mao Mao, is to keep Lacan in line. But they've unleashed hell. That man is not going to rest until Mao Mao is returned and she is safe, because that's his daughter. He is absolutely head over heels in love with his only biological child. Of course, he has his adopted son, which was really interesting to see because Mao Mao technically has a brother. Or I'd love to see her and her brother kind of build their relationship in series 3, because I don't think they'll really interact at this point because there's not many episodes left. But he's not going to allow anything to happen to her. But I think Shishu, in his mind, thought just as my daughter could be used as leverage against me, Mama could be used as leverage against Lacan. Hence, Mama was taken out of the picture. She's also there as bait for Jinshi. But it is kind of really sad to see that with the previous emperor's death, all this hatred and resentment has just had nowhere to go, because they put it all on the previous emperor. But with him gone, ease them, it doesn't resolve how they feel. So that anger and frustration has now leaked out into the rear palace itself, into the structure and system that kept them trapped here, that made them a victim to this previous emperor. They want to bring it down, but it's also not the current emperor's fault, and it's also not his children's fault or his concubines, but that system is still being perpetrated. So I can understand where that resentment and anger comes from, because the system hasn't stopped. That system is still ongoing. Even though the current emperor isn't abusing young girls, there are still concubines here that can never leave if they've been deflowered. So it makes sense that their resentment is going to move from the previous emperor because he's dead. They can no longer have him as the central focus of that hatred and fear and resentment, to now the system entirely. And they may not have been involved in the plot, but as Shinshi said, they were actively helping and aiding and hiding what was ongoing. So they're innocent in that they weren't part of the rebellion, but they weren't innocent in the fact that they suspected something was happening and decided that they weren't going to say anything, that they were just going to allow it to happen because of their own internal resentment. As I said, Jinshi has started to take notes ever since episode 3 because of the fact that someone was able to fool him and everybody else by pretending to be Jin. And as we saw here, he made a note of every single physical characteristic of these servants under Lolan, but not just Lolan servants, everyone's servants, and noticed instantly the mole being concealed by makeup and knew that that wasn't Lolan because Lolan doesn't have a mole there. I knew it was going to come full circle. I did say before he even spoke to her that this is going to come back into play, but I love that he kind of leveled out. He was so angry and frustrated and desperate to find Mao Mao that he let the facade of Jinshi the eunuch fall. And it's understandable. He's frustrated. He feels like he's not getting anywhere. He wants to find her so desperately that he feels like he needs to be firm and fierce with people in order to get somewhere. But I love that this was also a reiteration to Jinshi about what Mama's been saying since series 1, that these servants aren't involved because they want to be, because they support what's ongoing. They may not even know what's actually happening, but they are pawns in the games of the upper class. They are weaponized and used for their aims, their benefits, without fully knowing what those aims and benefits are. Because these servants are beholden to their masters. They're beholden to the whims and desires of those they serve. They know that if they don't obey, there are dire, severe consequences. And Mama has been reiterating this to Jinshi, that servants don't often have a choice, that they are victims to the class structure. And Jinshi, I think, finally got it in this moment where he realizes these women don't actually know what's happening. They just are following orders from a noble woman, but also a high-ranking concubine. To be dismissed because you didn't serve her properly is a disgrace. It's akin to dishonoring your family. So you wouldn't question it. You would just go along with it. And Jinshi kind of realizes that when he pulls them all into the room and he realizes that questioning them isn't going to get him anywhere because they don't actually know anything, because they were just following orders. They were just obeying. And again, this just all ties back to what Mama has been trying to tell him, is that servants don't have a choice. They are very much victims within this society too. That if someone deemed their life unnecessary, then their lives could just be snuffed out at a mere command. They don't really have a say, but yet they are treated as if they are disposable. They are weaponized for the gain of others. So I love that Jinshi finally began to understand what Mama has been telling him for so long. I also feel so sorry for Jinshi and that existential crisis he's having, that he was so desperate to convince himself that he wasn't the Emperor's son because of all this gossip and rumor about him being illegitimate, that he almost felt like he would be a disgrace to the royal family because he's not the Emperor's child. And therefore he wanted to be the eunuch. He didn't want to be the crown prince. He didn't want to be affiliated because he isn't the previous emperor. He thinks he's not his son because everybody is questioning his legitimacy and he's overhearing this rumor and gossip. So then to have someone actually recognize how he looks like the previous emperor and drive home this insecurity that he has felt in who he actually is, in being a crown prince, in being royal, must be absolutely harrowing, because he is gaslit himself into thinking that he's not actually royalty, that he doesn't deserve to be royalty because he's not biologically linked, that he has to be illegitimate, and he's not. Of course, the previous emperor is his grandfather, but Jinshi obviously doesn't know that. But he convinced himself that he must be illegitimate, that everybody who was saying that he isn't the emperor's child is right, and he didn't want to bring disgrace and shame to his family, so he decided to become the eunuch. He decided to take on this guise and to be of use and to do what he could to help his brother whilst not bringing shame on the family, which is just so incredibly sad that he's had that burden on his shoulders for so many years, and for someone to suddenly recognize his connection, his lineage, must be such a gut punch, because it's just reiterated to him that he is the crown prince, that he is royal, that he is linked to this family, not in the way that he thinks. He's not the previous emperor's son, he's the current emperor's son, but whether he'll eventually learn that, I don't know. But hopefully this will be the start of him stepping into his position as the crown prince and moving away. We know that he stopped taking the hormone suppressant. We know that he's thinking consciously about telling Mao Mao who he is, and he's tried, but she's absolutely not making it easy for him, which means he is taking his future seriously about what that means for him and for Mao Mao. And now I think having someone drive home that point of his actual lineage is all the more cementing to him that he needs to move away from this facade, from this guise of Jinshi, and step into the role of being the crown prince, of being the potential heir to the throne. So hopefully we'll start to see that come into fruition. But with everything that's going on, I'm not sure if Mao Mao will be told by Jinshi, but she already knows. That's the thing, she already knows, but Jinshi wants to tell her nonetheless, but she already knows. She's just gaslighting herself, gaslighting us at this point. Could then deal with Jinshi stepping into his new position, in gaining confidence in his abilities and cementing his power as the prince, and stepping into that rather than hiding away from it, rather than shying away from what that role expects of him. But I just liked how we got to see the comparison between Jinshi and Mao Mao as children, from Mao Mao in series 1 listening to this rumor and gossip and how that affected her perception of herself, and also now with Jinshi and how that affected his perception of not being worthy to be the crown prince because he's not legitimate, of possibly bringing shame to his family because nobody knows who he looks like, and this almost crisis of identity that he has. Whereas now that someone has driven at home, he may feel more capable of stepping up into being the crown prince and taking on that role without worry what people will say about him, that people might question his legitimacy. But yeah, I want Jinshi to find out what's going on. I want Mao Mao to interact with her adopted brother, who the minute I saw him, I was like, that looks like Lacan. I swear that boy could be Lacan's actual biological son. And I wouldn't have questioned it. He looks more like Lacan than Mao Mao looks like Lacan. It's kind of strange how identical they are, but it will be interesting to see Mao Mao interact with her adopted brother. Lacan has been unleashed. I don't think Shishu realizes how much of a menace Lacan actually is, especially because even Jinshi was like, oh no, how did he know? And they're like, oh, it must have slipped out that man's not going to rest. He is going to be an absolute menace to society. He's going to be a dog with a bone until Mao Mao is found. He's not going to rest. And I am so excited to see how the rest of this series plays out, because we don't have very many episodes left. And I'm so sad because then we have to wait until October, but it's fine because Freerun starts today. And I'm so excited for Freerun. But yeah, I'm not looking forward to the fact that I have to wait until October. But I have the light novels, and I will be reading the light novels of series 1 and series 2. I won't be reading past series 2. So hopefully when series 3 starts, I'll be able to talk more about the light novels and how they connect to the anime. I think an army's being built. I think Surei is the daughter of the banished princess with Shishu, because from what it looked like, there's a bit of an age gap. So it could have been that like Shishu had a marriage, but she died and he already had a daughter from that marriage when he was given the concubine and they had Lolan. Because there looks to be like maybe 4 or 5 years between Surei and Lolan. So it could genuinely be that he had a marriage and she died when Surei was quite young, and Surei didn't really know her mother, but she knew enough about her family existence to mourn her grandmother essentially, because why would she visit that grave if not for the connection? And also the fact that when Jinshi was having this thought process, that if the daughter had survived, it was almost like, what then? And we saw Sure. So Sure has to be the daughter of the banished princess. And the fact that the woman helping them in the clinic, cannot remember her name. I know how it's spelt, but I can't say it. So I'm not going to risk trying to say it because I'm going to completely butcher it. She must have been very close with Surei's grandmother, Taihwan. And because of that closeness, because of that link, likely was converted into helping the rebellion by meeting the granddaughter, Surei. I imagine it was Surei that went to her, that spoke to her, because Surei was at the clinic, and that's how she intercepted Mao Mao. And she also spoke to her by name. And I think that's how she's been brought into the fold, is she was close with Taihuan. She was likely the person that comforted her when her daughter was taken away from her and when she was kind of berated for having an affair with the doctor, which she didn't have, and had to suffer the consequences of that. Also, not being allowed to have her daughter and to raise her daughter is completely heart-wrenching. Only for her daughter to then be raised by this doctor. Her daughter then probably married Shishu, and then they had Surei, and then the banished princess most likely passed away because we haven't really seen her. And if Shishu has married this concubine to have Lolan, the likely thing is that his last wife died. So Surei, when she first came to the palace, made connections there and probably made contact with someone who was close to her grandmother and revealed who she actually was, and that brought her on side. I think Surei was how she ended up forming part of this rebellion, because she was able to see maybe the likeness to her friend that she lost and maybe wanted to help the granddaughter of her friend after all the suffering that her grandmother went through. And having seen that suffering, she wanted to be a part of Surei's attempt to bring down the rear palace and to bring down the structure as a whole that has harmed so many women and girls in the process. And perhaps is her hope that if Shishu takes over, things will be better, that things will change. But what they're likely forgetting is Shishu procured most of these young girls for the Emperor, which was mentioned in Anshi's episode 9. And Anshi talked about how Shishu had brought in multiple young girls for the Emperor's interests. So Shishu is not exempt from any of this. He is just as guilty in terms of the fact that he knowingly brought young girls in and subjected them to this fate, knowing what was going to happen. So this expectation that things might be better under him is not going to help. But I think in her mind, the old woman that runs the clinic, it's better than having the progeny of the previous emperor ruling. She doesn't want his descendants to hold power anymore. She wants to get rid of them entirely. And Shishu isn't a descendant of the emperor, but he was very good friends with the previous emperor's mother. So again, he's manipulating people, but I think it would have been Surei that got her on side. It would have been Surei that went to her. She would have likely learned that Surei is the daughter of this banished princess that her friend had taken away from her, and that she wants to help Surei however she can. I wonder if Surei met her grandmother, because we know that Taihun only died the previous year. So it could be that whilst she was here, she did actually meet her grandmother, or maybe she came to the clinic looking for her grandmother, but her grandmother had already passed away, and that's when she met her grandmother's friend, and then that's how they came into contact with each other. And then when she learned about her background and that she's the daughter of the banished princess and what she's intending to do and why she's here, she wanted to get in on that, because that resentment and anger that she feels towards the previous emperor has seeped out into targeting anyone in connection with the previous emperor. And that includes the current emperor, because he is the son of him. He is his progeny. So it's no longer bound by the previous emperor. With his death, this resentment has festered out into the wider rear palace towards the system as a whole, but also anyone who is of the blood of the previous emperor. But it's not their fault again, and they didn't ask for this. And like, he's a good guy, but I can understand that trauma that she feels manifests in ways that are hard to comprehend for most people. So I can understand why she wants to bring it all down. She wants to destroy it with her own two hands because it feels like the only viable option that she has. I think that's all I want to say for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next episode, bye!